Connor Kenway has slowly developed a cult following after his rocky reception during the release of Assassin's Creed 3. Back in 2012, Assassin's Creed 3 suffered from the burden of coming after the absolute sensation that was the Ezio trilogy. To wrestle with these high expectations, the game went big, with the length of the story, the scope, the gameplay options, the new animations, and much, much more. Everything about Assassin's Creed 3 was bigger than its predecessor, but that didn't necessarily mean that everything about this game was better. At the heart of this attempt at making a worthy, grand sequel was Connor Kenway. He was a new assassin, one far less charismatic than Ezio and arguably with a worse voice actor, caught in an unfair comparison with one of the greatest protagonists in gaming, and ultimately criticized by the wider industry. And yet, today, Connor Kenway is, to many including me, inexplicably appealing. And I think it's probably just because he's different. Ever since the first trailer dropped and we took a look at this new setting and this new assassin, it was clear that Connor wasn't going to follow in the footsteps of either Altair or Ezio. He was much louder, more aggressive and violent, almost embodying the most extremist assassin ideals, that of striking fear into the enemy through public acts of violence, extending the blame beyond any one target into all those who support them, even the lowliest guards. Connor, to me, is like a 1700s Batman if you gave him anger issues and one of the coolest weapons ever, his tomahawk. He's got new projectile options, some sick outfits, and he's kitted out with some of the best combat animations and parkour animations ever. Seriously, like, the animation work that they did on this game is exceptional. Hate him or love him, there's no denying this game presented us with a different and undeniably cool protagonist. And with that comes a very interesting way to play this character in a lore-accurate way. I'm going to spend this video running through some of the tips and tricks I've gathered that will help you immerse yourself in Assassin's Creed 3 and behave in the way that I believe Connor Kenway actually would. Maybe it might even help you become a better player along the way. Now, as many of you know, these videos take more time and resources to make than my normal videos, and covering the production costs wouldn't be possible without help. And thankfully the folks over at Cheatcode were kind enough to sponsor this video. Cheatcode is a new gaming supplement company that created a formula that's designed to help you reach your peak gameplay performance. They have a unique formulation that supports your energy, your focus, and your reaction time when gaming. They have your standard kind of powdered supplement that you can put in your water, but they also have Cheatcode Energized Gum, which is just a convenient mid-game energy boost for those who want to stay at the top of their game. And they were actually kind enough to send me a sample of both the powder and the gum. The powder, they sent the green apple, which is one of the two flavors. The other flavor is blueberry flavor. And they also sent me some watermelon gum. And they didn't know this when they sent it to me, but I'm actually a bit of a chewing gum fiend. So I was chowing down on these bad boys over the last few days. So thanks again for Cheatcode for sponsoring this video. And if you're interested in getting this, make sure to use the link below with my personal discount code so they know that I sent you. So who is Connor Kenway? Overall, Connor is a character shaped by the intersection of two worlds, the indigenous world of his people and the chaotic, rapidly changing world of colonial America. A lot of how we should inform our playstyle has to do with how he was raised and kind of the trauma that he went through when he was a kid. Born to a Native American mother and a British father, he is raised among the Mohawk tribe and develops a deep sense of justice and loyalty. He's always driven by a desire to protect his land and his freedom, which falls perfectly with the assassin ideals before he ever even met the assassins. But he's also incredibly accustomed to seeing death, violence, and war, and has grown up in a world where that is a natural consequence of seeking peace. It happened with his family, with his allies, with his friends, and ultimately with his mentor. He joins the Assassin Brotherhood and becomes embroiled in the American Revolution, challenging both Templars and colonial forces. Connor is far more reserved and a determined character, guided by an unbreakable moral compass. He fights for liberty and justice in a very turbulent and frankly corrupt world where there's no clear good guy. He's also, in my opinion, just a complete badass. He's equipped with many weapons beyond the hidden blade that can help him in both stealth and combat. And I think the key to playing as Connor Kenway is utilizing all those tools and all those weapons beyond the hidden blade. And speaking of stealth and combat, Connor is unique in this video series since he's one of the few characters where stealth isn't necessarily the primary playstyle you want to adopt when taking down enemies. It was clear when the designers made Assassin's Creed 3 that stealth wasn't as much of a priority as it used to be, and combat really took a front seat in this game. Of course, you want to steer clear of committing mass murder on the streets of Boston if you're trying to play in a realistic or immersive way, but don't shy away from entering in combat in controlled environments, since the game is obviously designed to reward open combat, and you are playing as an assassin who is more than equipped to handle those situations. My recommendation here to increase the lore accuracy and immersion is to maximize the amount of tools and techniques you have available and that you use when you're in combat. Connor can disarm enemies, throw enemies, or counter-kill enemies in combat, and can use a mix of ranged and melee weapons during the combat. The Hidden Blade is a great weapon to use when the number of enemies is low, or you're in a closed environment, since the blade basically just turns into a dagger and it's good for close range hand-to-hand combat. Having a short range knife to quickly dispatch a couple dudes works great. But if you do enter a larger fight, his iconic tomahawk weapon is appropriately terrifying, and I recommend you switch to that, especially when you mix it in with his bow, which is a weapon that he's been able to get accustomed to over his entire life. I mean, at the end of the day, Connor is a hunter, so the more hunting tools you use, the better it's going to be for immersion. Combat is relatively easy in this game. The only thing that you need to take into account are the different archetypes, like the different types of enemies that you have. Regular dudes you can kind of just kill easily. Then you have the scout-looking guys that can only be killed from a chain or a counter. You have officers that need to be disarmed, and the bigger guys you kind of need to avoid or throw to the ground or put on their backs in order to get to them. But if you're a fan of this channel, you probably do want to know how you can incorporate lore-accurate stealth into your playstyle. And I'm happy to report that there are many ways that you may not know about that makes this possible. So let's look at stealth. To start off, you need to understand Connor is a very aggressive person. Like, even if he's trying to be undetected, he's an extremely aggressive person, and I recommend that you use high-profile stealth kills whenever possible. The animation is just much more brutal and more in line with Connor's character. Here's a comparison between a low-profile stealth kill and a high-profile stealth kill. Having grown up in nature and kind of being a hunter, Connor is also great at using tools, traps, and the environment to get to his target. So haystacks, corners, and other hiding spots are honestly great for this. Your bow is also an amazing tool, but I just want you to understand two things regarding the bow. One is you kind of want to get a headshot, since it's not clear which enemies die from a body shot or not, and you don't really want to leave it up to chance. And the game registers the bow as a loud weapon, even though it's just not. So make sure that there are no other guards around or in line of sight that can hear you before you shoot your bow, because you'll basically be detected. AI is extremely dumb in this game, as is Ubisoft tradition. So the whistle and any other lures like dead bodies that can help you drag guards into the right spot in order to dispatch them are basically your ally. So up until now, all these tools and methods we've talked about are pretty standard for Assassin's Creed, and it's only really the aggressiveness with which you use them that will make them more canon friendly to Connor. However, there is one, in my opinion, extremely underrated mechanic that only exists in this capacity within Assassin's Creed 3, which I believe you need to be using if you want to feel like you're actually Connor Kenway, and that is the recruit mechanic. Coming off of Assassin's Creed Revelations, the recruit mechanic was expanded beyond our wildest dreams, and it's a shame that few people know about it. In older games, your recruits could basically be called upon to eliminate any guard you like, or send down like a hailstorm of arrows that would kill any guard in a given radius. And so far, that was awesome. But then came along AC3 and gave you 6 times the optionality with what you can do with your recruits. You have lures, you can start riots, you can pretend to be a prisoner, you can have recruits shoot guards or set up an ambush on a patrol. This essentially turns Connor into a potential assassin mastermind, and this mechanic, in my opinion, does a real justice to his character, because he's not just a meathead brute, as a lot of people think. He's also a tactical hunter, someone who understood how to track and place traps for his prey, someone who understands the art of hunting. And I think it's a phenomenal mechanic the team put into place to really drive that side of his character home during the gameplay, and it's a shame that not a lot of people use this mechanic. So let's take a look at this entry to the fort, for example, and see how Connor has a couple options to infiltrate it. First, we can use a lure tactic to send out one of our recruits, as you see here, to steal something from the guard, causing all of them to chase him and leaving the entry wide open for Connor to just enter and rip everyone apart. But now if we rewind and start again, Connor has an alternate, less overtly aggressive approach. Call upon some disguised recruits to come in, pretending to hold Connor hostage, and you can basically just enter the fort unnoticed and unbothered. Once you're in, you can call on them to assassinate guards, execute them, set up ambushes, or take everyone down by yourself. The recruit system is the final piece in the puzzle that is the lore-accurate Connor Kenway, and I really encourage you to experiment and explore how you could incorporate this mechanic into your gameplay. But the immersion doesn't have to stop there. There's other things you can take care of to make everything more lore-friendly. His outfit sets outside of a few weird ones like the captain's outfit or other Easter egg outfits, are all great options for an immersive look. You can use any hooded variant, any assassin looking outfit, even the mods are great for him. Honestly, most outfits you have in this game are very lore accurate. When you use parkour to traverse the city when you can, try and stay in the middle level, not on the street level and not on the rooftops, since the poles and the platforms most closely resemble the trees on which he learned to move, and the rooftops are also just usually littered with patrols and guards that might slow you down. When you're in the frontier and not in a city, I encourage you to hunt and be self-sustainable and act like Connor would, and I also really recommend you to do the homestead missions if you haven't. Because first of all, it'll further your resources while also getting to know more about the human side of Connor. These missions are like incredibly underrated if you want to know who Connor is as a person beyond the assassin. And if right now you're looking for an example of how all these things look when they're put into action, I made a video on my stealth channel showing you how to play as Connor that you can look at right now, so feel free to check that out.